Welcome to the Nature-Based Therapy podcast, where we explore the healing power of nature through inspiring stories and guided experiences. Let's reconnect with the wild within. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the Nature-Based Therapy podcast. My guest today is Richard Scales, and he's from Therapeutic Horticulture with WA The Scales Way. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Kit. Welcome.
And I'm really interested in your story because you've come on board with nature-based therapy and you have a very diverse background and have a different experience than your traditional psychologist, social worker,
Correct.
mental health clinician. So we'll get into that later on and explore kind of how you got into this work. But the first question I usually start with, and I really like this question because it kind of sets the foundation of our relationship with the natural world, is
Yes.
what is your early childhood experience of being with nature?
Yeah. My early experiences, when I think back, would have to be when I was like a really young child, and would spend time down at the beach, and I'd be tinkering on the edge of where the waves were finished after they're broken. I'd come up onto the sand, and you'd have little rock pools and little sand ridges, and water would pool, and I'd be looking for little microorganisms or little fish or little seashells or things I could pick up and collect or just study and watch the pattern of the water going back out. Or yeah, just that's probably my earliest recollection of being out
Mm.
with nature. That was quite prominent. And then I actually grew up in the eastern states, so I'm now living in Western Australia, but I actually South Australian born, but did my primary school years in Victoria. So on a, often on a weekend, Mum and Dad would take us up into the Dandenongs, and we'd have a picnic. And I'd love to get in where Puffing Billy runs, and I'd love
Ah,
to get
beautiful.
out where the creek and the stream would go through, and there'd be little things you could just watch the water trickling through the branches and over the stones and the embankment. And I just love getting into that and playing around in there and building things. And yeah, that would be my earliest recollections of being
Mm.
out in nature, Kit.
Yeah,
And they
beautiful.
have a big, I guess subconsciously, they had a big impact on future direction in life.
Yeah, and what you're describing there, that early childhood experience of, being on the ground, in particular, I think looking down and really honing in on what else is out there in the world. And this brings to mind the word curiosity,
Yes,
that you were very curious, you were exploring, you were also noticing different textures and designs. And so I guess there's an element of that creativity was kind of coming in
yes.
as well. And
I'm a very creative person, so I said, and so I was always creating things or studying the texture of things, and why is this smooth? And I would sometimes I just go and look for really smooth, interesting stones. When I was down the beach, you'd get some that had little coloured layer patterns on them, or a shell that had a really interesting pattern. So I was looking for things that had unusual but intricate patterns. And if
mm,
because sometimes you'd pick up a shell and it'd just be like a plain white one with a bore hole in it. Oh, I'll just leave that. And then the next shell I picked up would have a really interesting fluorescent color pattern in the segment. I went, well, I'll keep that one. And so I'd
mm.
often come home from the beach with a little bucket with things in that I just loved. Yeah,
Your little collectibles. And,
yeah,
you know,
collectibles.
yeah, often we will walk along the beach and we're kind of, a lot of the times we're in our mind. I think, especially as adults, and I think this is what children do well, is that they're not in their minds a lot. They're more into their bodies, and we are curious. We
Yes,
become more open to exploring and looking and, taking time. I think time stops. Whereas, if we're looking at people walking along the beach these days, you're going for your walk, but are you really noticing what's at your feet?
yes, that's right.
And such those intricate details that you're describing. And I love that. And that's led to you being creative as well. So I guess, yeah, my next question is then, merging in from, that transition from childhood, having that really positive experience with the natural world and being curious and creative, leading into your adult life, what made you drawn to studying nature-based therapy and wanting to, yeah, connect nature to therapy?
Yeah, I think I always have had a connection to nature. I've always had a green thumb. When I look back, my grandparents, on my dad's side, dad's father was a really good vegetable grower, gardener, and he
Yeah.
had an amazing garden. And I used to love going to their place, and he'd have the most amazing vegetables in a, say a 10 by 10 square plot, or he'd and things like that. And I've been in the corporate world for many years. I don't have a social background or a psychologist background. I'm actually teacher trained, and then I went into the tourism industry. So I did that for many a year, and I wanted to do something different, a change. I've always had, I think, a calling for nature, and I suddenly realised I'm going to do a complete change here from the corporate world, which I've done for many a year. But I could see the benefits of nature. I could see what nature can do for us in terms of a positive health aspect, what it can do to brighten our mood, all sorts of things. Just many positives. I thought I'm going to put myself through some learnings, and that's the start of my journey in nature-based studies. And
Mm,
here we are today.
wonderful. And so, what are you doing today? Like,
Yeah, so
how do you
today,
bring nature into your personal life and your
yeah,
professional life?
our personal life at the moment is tending to raise garden beds at home, preparing things for the coming growing season, getting out around the suburbs and walking the dog, and walking through parks, just sitting at the park or watching the birds fly through, observing the nature of the clouds coming through, just observing things around me, the
Mm,
connection with nature to me, um, getting the energy from that environment into me,
yeah.
those sorts of things. So a lot of that is what I do around here. Um, I belong to some associations that are nature based, so that keeps the connection in there, and widening my contacts of who I know within the industry as well. Um, and going forward, I'm about to embark on my own nature based business, um, with to be aiming to work with homeschooling children and the elderly citizens in the community, and developing from there. So that's where I'm currently at, Kit.
I like that. And so, what are some of the things you're going to integrate into working with elderly people and homeschooling? And I love that combination. And I'm curious, merging the two
Yeah.
together as well. Like, what
We
does
could
that
even
look
have
like?
you could even have it reminds me of a program on the ABC that not that it wasn't a nature based program, but you could use the principle behind it to nature, where they had young children or teenagers going into old people's homes and doing things with the elderly citizens of the community. So you could do something. So this is still a good work in progress, but you could do something like this with homeschooling children or children to do with elderly citizens, or I could do, if I just take the elderly citizens by themselves, I could do potting activities with them. There's a range of craft type things you could do with them that and incorporate nature things into it. Children, you could go down you could do things outdoors in parks, and collect things. You could do nature hunts and games and create things. So all those sorts of things, Kit.
There's so much we can do with nature. And
Yeah.
I'm interested too to pick your brain
Yep.
on the connection between or the importance of connecting to nature, being curious, being creative, and how that sets a precursor for learning.
Good question. there's the inquisitive nature side of things. I think that by incorporating things of interest, things that could you can pose like little nature problems to be solved. You can tap into the minds of who you've got with you to create solutions to or to create things with nature. So posing challenges that they have to solve or doing an activity that gets their creative thoughts going to be able to work forward with nature.
And I think that's that fine balance of working with the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain.
Yes,
And I think, I've had this discussion before with people, and it's come up in the podcast that in our early childhood experience, before we enter the school system, we're very much the right side of the brain. We're somatic, we're playing, we're creative, we're curious, we develop our own problem solving skills. And then we enter the
yeah,
school system, which is more
yeah,
focused on the left side of the brain,
yeah,
logical, reading, writing, arithmetic.
yeah,
Imagine if we brought the two together.
yes,
And instead of bringing creativity in as an art class where you usually have to do the same as everyone else and then you're
yeah,
judged on it,
yeah,
that we use nature-based creativity, outdoor learning to enhance the learning outcomes, especially of primary school
yeah.
students.
Absolutely. I don't want, like say for example, we had a group of 10. I wouldn't want 10 things exactly the same. I would like to see 10 different individual things that the kids have created, that's relevant to that particular child. And doesn't matter what it looks like, it's what they produce, because that's the important thing is how it's produced by the child or the adult. Everyone's individual, everyone sees the things differently. So what they create, that's perfect.
Yeah, and it's really honing in on connecting to the authentic self
Yes,
and
it is.
celebrating individuality,
Yes,
and that each person does things in their own unique way.
that's right.
And I think, a lot more people are starting to homeschool now as well.
Yes, that's really taking off. Actually, there's a it's actually I didn't realize how big it was here in Western Australia until we got involved with it, and we got involved with it last year. Um, just how many children are actually homeschooling?
And being able to homeschool, a lot of people think homeschooling is, it's kind of doing school, but at home, and you're still kind of following the curriculum. Do you want to explain a
Yeah,
little bit about
yeah,
how do you
homes,
do it and how do you
how
bring
I do
nature
it. Yeah,
into
yeah,
it?
yep. Well, homeschooling is not just being at home sitting at a desk. Homeschooling is wherever you are in the community. It can be any. You can be anywhere doing anything. You, and it can be incorporated in some form or other, tied into the curriculum. Not necessarily directly, but you can go. We often do an excursion, so we'll go out somewhere on an excursion. We might go down to the port and sit, watch the boats come in, the ships come in, and watch the ocean come in. We might go to a museum. Uh, there's a, so there's a whole different lot of ways we can do it. I take my daughter out for a walk of a morning, which is the start of our school day. Um, and we're very flexible for the way we operate the day. So it's not rigid. And that's the way that I like to operate the homeschool thing. It's more
Mm.
about going with the flow and working with what's relevant at that particular time. Because I've got a daughter that's got anxiety, so I've got to work with around that, which is why we're homeschooling actually. Um, but there's a number of ways you can incorporate aspects of nature into dealing with things like that. So yeah, mm,
Yeah, I really like that. And thank you for sharing that experience of, why you're homeschooling. And I think so many young people, it's quite normal in our society. I think my experience also working in mental health and counseling, that a lot of people are experiencing anxiety. And there's so many expectations on us, not just for school or to perform at school, but I think just in general. And I think, since COVID and since everything's gone online, um, the disconnection has created that anxiety.
yeah,
And I think we do need to be thinking outside of the box in how do we deliver services? How do we deliver schooling as well?
Yeah,
And that there's not just one way to do things, but there's many different ways. And I think, thinking about nature as a metaphor and then tying in
yeah,
your experience with horticulture and
yeah.
therapeutic horticulture, what lessons does nature give us around gardening, those metaphors that we can apply into how people are different?
It gives us a lot of lessons actually, Kit, because yeah, when you look at nature, nature is different every time you look at it. I'm actually sitting here looking at my one of my raised garden beds at the moment, which is just starting to come to life, coming out of winter. And I can look at it now, and if I come back this afternoon and look at it, the same patch, it'll look different, and something will have subtly changed in that way. And then I use other things that go on around in society, people that are tied into nature in some way as inspiration as well into what I like to do.
Beautiful. Yeah. And I think, everything's always adapting and changing and evolving. And I think, that's how we have to look at our systems as well,
Yes,
that they shift and they change and they're not always the same. And I guess that goes back to our curriculum.
yes,
How do we have a real shake up of our curriculum and adapt it and change it and suit it to the needs of, the environment? Because when we look at gardening, that not every plant fits into the same environment. And then we look at
no,
companion planting and
yes,
we look at our support systems that are around us that enable us to grow. So if we're a seed and then we turn into a seedling,
yeah,
it depends on the soil, it depends on what other
yeah,
plants, it depends
yeah,
on the positioning of the sun. Do we have too much sun? Do we not have enough
yeah,
sun? Do we need water? Do we not have water?
yeah,
And I think we need to look at individuals, the
yes,
human in the same sense as
yep,
well.
exactly right. Because I mean, we did an activity which is still ongoing actually, but it's to do with the life cycle of a seed basically. So we started with basically we did broad beans actually, so we got them and soaked them and watched them and analysed them and we're working through that process. But you can then link that back to the cycle of life for a human, and so you can parallel the two, in terms of the stages that one goes through. So things
Yes,
like
and
that.
I love that about horticulture therapy that, while we're gardening, we can have those conversations because, we learned that in our course too, that we are nature. We're
Yes.
not separate from the natural world.
No.
And so how nature works is how we work. And often if, you're stuck on a question, it's like, well, what would nature do? How
Yeah,
does
that's right.
nature work? How do we look at
Yeah,
our gardening and say, how do we navigate this? And I think, yeah, we can take those lessons. And these are conversations you have with the people you're working with while you're
correct.
gardening. They're finding the
Absolutely.
solutions. You're not the therapist, nature's the therapist.
That's right. You're the facilitator and nature's the therapist. That's right. Is you're the person guiding it. Nature's the one that's actually directing it and
Yes.
and providing, the potential solutions or the potential answers to what it is. It's not you or I or anybody else giving this is the way it's done. It's nature provides it to us, and then we interpret it, process it, and on we go.
Yes. So we're actually accessing our own inner healing
Yeah,
intelligence and our own
exactly.
wisdom
Yeah,
by nature being almost like a mirror.
yeah, like a mirror, and the connection from us to nature is so important. Yeah,
Mm, definitely.
because it's
I love that.
very easy to become disconnected with life, with society, with the way society runs. So, nature provides such a great opportunity for that connection to feel grounded and yeah,
And I think it's just about, you mentioned this before, and I think this comes, when we're looking at full circle, your early childhood experience of nature, what was so profound, I think, that shaped where you are now and how you work and deliver your services is really about the curiosity.
correct. I never thought that it would play such an important role at the time or thing at the time, but when I look back on it now, look when I contemplate life and look back on where I've come through my journey in life to this point in time, absolutely curiosity is there the whole way through, and even even now I'm really curious. So the curiosity factor is always there,
Mm.
and will be going forward.
And I guess
To
that's
help,
what you're bringing to your therapeutic sessions
yeah,
is that,
yeah,
you're working alongside nature as co-therapist and
yes,
you're inviting people to be connected and then you're inviting people to be curious.
correct, yes. It's all about being curious, and yeah, and by being curious, you then discover things and learn things, can then apply things and move on to the next stage or next step in life's journey.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And so with your work now, um, where do we go to from now? How do people get in touch with you? How do we find out more about what you do? What are your offerings?
So at the moment, I've just created myself a Facebook site for Therapeutic Horticulture with WA the Scales Way. Um, Yet it's brand new, so I haven't posted anything to this moment, but going forward, there'll be things posted to it. So that's one way of contacting. Um, there's an email address attached to the site. That's another way that you can contact, and there will be a phone contact as well. Uh, they're the main ways, I guess. And then I'll get myself known or out into the community or put feelers out, so word of mouth and things to uh, as well. So that's another source of developing from here. Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think by the time, this podcast is released, that you'll have your Facebook. We'll put a link to your website up, where people can reach out to you, and especially if they're in WA. So, what area in Western Australia are you?
So I'm in the southern suburbs of Perth. I live in Thornley, so that's the southeastern suburbs of Perth. But distance is no issue. So I'm a very mobile person. So I'm used to, and I've got family that live north of the river, so I'm always out
You
and
will
about.
travel.
I will travel. So
Yeah, you will
I'm not,
travel.
yeah, I'm not just stuck to my southeastern corner of Perth. I'm out there
This,
in all directions, yeah, within
yeah.
the metropolitan area, and even would go even to the close country areas as well. So I'm not locked into one particular spot. I believe you need to have flexibility and wide reach. Okay?
Yeah, I love that. And so, this is something that you're specializing in working with schools and aged care. So,
Yep,
I'm imagining too that and people can come and do the services if they're in your area. But if people are wanting to bring in these therapeutic horticultural concepts and nature-based interventions into their programs, whether it's an aged care facility or whether it's a
yep,
school or a homeschooling community,
yep,
that this would be something you could offer them different ways of doing
correct.
things.
Absolutely, this is something that I can see doing myself doing going forward, working with some of these communities to bring things into their community, or working with people in that are already in those communities already,
Doing
and
consultation.
doing consultations and helping them to present and present things and do things, or get them to do things with their community. So like a bit like an advisor in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. This is so important, and I really think you need to go national.
Uh,
Like,
yeah, I'm not just limiting myself to WA. I'm prepared to go further afield. So I'd even do online Zoom things as well. So and
yeah.
prepared to travel east at times as well. So yeah, I'm not just going to limit myself to one thing. I want to branch out.
Yeah, I love this. This is really, really important work. And I guess for the listeners of this podcast, if you
Mm,
are homeschooling or you're thinking of homeschooling or things aren't just the right fit, or you're wanting to get into more therapeutic horticulture, whether it's in a school or aged care facility, I think it's about, again, we mentioned thinking outside of the box
yes.
and that there isn't just one way of doing things. We can
No, there's
really.
multiples. Absolutely, spot on. There's not just one way. There's many ways to do it.
Yeah, and I
And
think, Richard, because you're curious and you're creative,
yep,
you're the right person to consult with.
thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Definitely.
I'm very excited about what's ahead. Oh, it's a bit
Yeah, me
daunting because
too.
I've never done anything like this before. I've never ever done this is the first time I've ever done a podcast too. So,
Well, you're doing a
um,
great job. And I think you've already shared enough information with people that, this is why we do the podcast,
yeah,
because we want to share with people the importance of nature connection. There's so
yeah,
many different ways we can do nature-based therapy, and that nature-based therapy can really fit into any curriculum. It can fit into any healthcare service. It's a complementary therapy, so it complements pretty much everything.
absolutely it does. Exactly, it works with so many other things. It's not just a standalone. It can be a standalone, but it's not. It's not. That's not it. The only thing, it works and complements so many other things that people wouldn't even realize. Oh, you can tie it in with this, you can tie it with that. There's just a myriad of things we can do.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been so valuable listening to you talk and share your wisdom, and that you're actually doing this firsthand. You have this firsthand experience, and
Uh,
you want to share this with other people because you see the benefits.
I do, I certainly do, Kit. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come on today and discuss it. Yes.
No worries at all. And if you want to get in contact with Richard, we will have a link to his profile and his Facebook page, and you can reach out to Richard if you have any questions in relation to what we've been talking about today.
Thanks, Kit.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the journey into nature's embrace. Subscribe for more insights and stories that nurture the soul. Until next time, stay grounded.